My story starts with a bang. The world seemed to flip upside down and I was spinning out of control. A sharp pain, a heavy impact that made my brain rattle around inside my skull. Dizziness, pins and needles, blood, and piercing screams that took me a moment to realize were my own. I'm a professional rock climber, and last year I had an accident. I fell in an unusual way, and although the rope caught me, I impacted hard against the rock. The air ambulance were the first to arrive. I was immobilized and vac-packed by mountain rescue, while they set up a rope system to lower me to the foot of the crag. From here, I was carried to a helicopter and taken to the hospital for scans. I was on a stretcher with strict instructions not to move for a total of 7 hours. This gave me a lot of time to contemplate the various potential outcomes. Now, in actual fact, falling onto the rope in sport climbing is commonplace and considered relatively safe. To give you context, I've fallen onto a rope like this thousands of times. In this particular case, there were a number of factors that made what is usually a safe fall very dangerous. It was a horrible shock, and I'm grateful to be standing here today, having escaped with only minor injuries. Now, the reason I'm telling you about this accident is that it happened on a climb that was and still is a lifetime goal for me, a goal that at this point I had already invested a lot of time and energy in. The route is called Rain Shadow, and it's one of the UK's hardest climbs. On that day, lying on that stretcher, I gave up on Rain Shadow. I couldn't see a way past what had just happened. It seemed like a setback that I couldn't overcome. But tonight, I want to talk to you about determination, about where it comes from, what it needs to flourish, and how we may be able to engineer it more effectively. This is Malham Cove in North Yorkshire. I call it my happy place. And climbing up the center of this natural giant is Rain Shadow. First climbed by Steve McClure in 2003, it remains a test piece in modern standards. Only 6 people, all men, have successfully climbed it. It's extremely physically and mentally demanding, by far the hardest climb I have ever attempted. From the beginning, I was well and truly dreaming big. And that was nearly 3 years ago. Since then, I have put in countless days and hours of physical training for it, as well as many days on the route itself. Not to mention all the years of effort and experience that led me to the point where I could even entertain the idea of it. I'm one of those people that can honestly say I've thrown up in training sessions. I've gone home to realize that I've burst the blood vessels around my eyes from trying hard. I'm often the last person packing up at the crag. But it's not even just the physical side. I've read numerous books on sports psychology to gain the best possible mindset for success. I have my nutrition on point. I'm not in the pub on a Friday night. I'm usually in bed before 10 p.m. What I'm trying to communicate to you is that I've invested a lot in this goal. But the outcome of all this effort has never been guaranteed. With previous goals, I had a gut feeling I could do them. With this one, I didn't. So what would it mean to me to climb Rain Shadow? It would mean achieving something way beyond the scope of what I thought I could do. And then the accident happened. It felt like someone had pulled the rug from beneath me. It was a make or break moment, a crossroads. I could very easily have walked away. In fact, I was acutely aware that if I wanted an excuse to give up, this was probably my best chance. It was a position from which I could likely quit with my ego intact. Nobody would see it as a failure. It would be a case of fair enough rather than not being good enough. But there was a moment, a few days after the accident, where I mentally dug my heels in. This was not over. I was not giving up. I had this kind of internal dialogue with Rain Shadow. Oh, I see. You want to make this even harder than it already was. It's not just physically a massive challenge, but now it's got fear attached to it as well? Fine. Game on. And in that split-second moment, I chose to frame the experience as a challenge, to use it as an opportunity to grow and develop. Weirdly, the challenge of climbing Rain Shadow grew more enticing as it gained complexity. It was asking even more of me now. The accident actually became a catalyst for a whole new wave of determination. So, looking forward, I knew that by amending certain technical issues, it would be possible for me to try the route safely again. This was about understanding what had happened, analyzing the risks, and making appropriate and effective changes to the systems I was using. To be very, very clear, there was no way I was signing up for a repeat accident. Having made the necessary changes, I then had to get my confidence back. This involved gradual re-exposure to falling, essentially mental reconditioning. On a rational level, I knew that the risks were well managed, but the memory of a trauma is a fierce and stubborn adversary. It wasn't easy, it was tough and terrifying, and in all honesty, I questioned my sanity at points. But I did it, and I got back on the horse, so to speak. Finding this determination to continue, despite the obvious adversity and uncertainty, left me with a lot of questions. Why did I choose to grit my teeth for a fight? Can we break down this idea of determination into its component parts so we might better understand it? So firstly, where does determination like this originate? What is it anchored to? Motivation. Your basic underlying reasons for doing something. Which begs the question, why take on a goal like this in the first place? What's in it for me? Climbing at my absolute limit gives me access to an experience like none other. While actually on the rock, it takes me into a zone where I feel deeply alive, almost electric, a state known to many athletes, artists, and creators as flow. Flow is the term used by researchers to describe these optimal states of consciousness, these peak moments of total absorption, where the self vanishes, time distorts, and all aspects of performance go through the roof. This exhilarating feeling is why I go climbing. My late mother used to say, "Do what makes your heart sing." And in all the years since she said that, I haven't been able to think of a better way to describe the total joy and liberation that can be experienced when you engage fully in something that you love. In pursuit of this goal, I also learn an awful lot, both on and off the rock. So for me, access to flow experience and continual learning are the primary motivations that underpin my determination. But what about the end goal? Is that necessary for finding this level of determination? Could I not just go climbing on something physically easier and with less emotional baggage? Why push so hard at the limits of my physical and mental capabilities? Because in order to access flow, there must be challenge. Trying really hard is what pushes me over into that zone. It's the grit and the almost overwhelming effort that produces that electric state. It's finding the sweet spot where the task is possible, but it needs your whole being thrown into it to make it happen. And in terms of learning, the edge of my ability is where the most valuable lessons are. So the end goal is necessary because it provides a structure for this challenge. But at the same time, it offers an easy downfall: ego and expectation. To be fully in the moment, to be free to feel electric, is to be free of pressure and expectation. But in order to challenge oneself enough to get there, we create these goals, something to strive towards, to propel us into trying hard. So how do we escape the ego curse of expectation? How do we maintain a healthy detachment from these necessary goals? My solution here is to recognize the ego, rather than to ignore it or pretend it's not there. Consider all your motivations, even the ones you're not so proud of. So here I'm talking about pride, about recognition, other people's opinions, praise, medals, trophies, titles. These motivations can be lurkers, drivers that, if we ignore them, can scupper us by allowing too much focus on completion, on achieving some end point, rather than immersing in the current experience. Bring those lurkers into the light and examine them. Acknowledge them and give yourself the chance to manage them in an honest way. This authenticity and awareness gives you the opportunity to make sure that your primary motivations are in the right place. Determination is a hugely personal thing that requires a lot of time, energy, and attention. If you're driven mainly by ego-based goals, it's going to be easily weakened, short-lived, and not nearly so much fun. You've really got to love what you're doing just for the sake of it. This attitude grants you the most freedom from your goal. You want it, but you don't need it. The process can then become the focus rather than the achievement itself. Sounds good, right? But in practice, it's really hard. Imagine trying to do something that feels like stepping onto a whole new level and realizing that your best chance of success involves letting go of the outcome. So, the seed of determination requires a simple, heartfelt motivation for the experience, a desire for total immersion, a true love for the thing that you're doing. Next, there has to be an awareness of the ego, to keep things authentic and to save yourself from the jaws of pressure and expectation. My final ingredient is learning to embrace vulnerability and to welcome adversity. I ask you to knowingly engage in a process with no guarantee of success. To step into an arena of challenge that offers you no promises. Experiment with leaning into the adversity that your challenge brings and invite the uncomfortable feeling of uncertainty. Let your fears morph into a thrilling intensity and allow your failures to become your greatest education. Develop your resilience by learning to be comfortable with what used to be uncomfortable. Accept the notion that you may not reach the top, and reconcile this before you begin. It sounds defeatist, but it's not. It's about believing you can do something, but remaining open to the chance that you won't. And that being truly okay. This mindset frees you from the distractions of success. It releases you into flow. Now, I may never climb Rain Shadow, but while the desire is there, I am determined to give it my all. It makes me a better climber, and it continues to teach me so much about myself and my limits. And the experience, despite all the ups and downs, gives me so much joy. So if you take anything from this talk, let it be an invitation from me, an invitation to join me in dreaming bigger than perhaps you ever have before, and to support that dream with gritty determination. Embrace challenge, uncertainty, vulnerability, and adversity in the name of what you love to do. Examine your motivations and build honest communication lines with your ego. Use these tools to step out of your comfort zone and unlock your vast potential in an honest and fulfilling way. Watch as apathy becomes a distant memory. As my darling mother once said to her daughter, "Do what makes your heart sing." Thank you.